This video is creating photo mosaics. So looking at the finished product, I will take you through how to create it step by step on another image, but just take a moment to really analyze what was done here. So there's a couple background layers, the green, there's also a white keyline stroke with the drop shadow. And then I've taken a random image of our dog and created several identical squares that have been rotated, and they all have a white keyline stroke and a little bit of a drop shadow. So let's take a look at how to create this from the start. So with a new image, the first thing I want to do is I want to create my square. So I'm going to grab a brand new blank layer and my rectangular marquee tool. And with that tool, I'm going to hold down the shift key so I can make an exact square. Now I'm going to make the square much larger in this example, just so that way it'll go quicker. I'm going to position it to just a general spot. I'm going to go ahead and fill this square with a little bit of white, just so that it's easier to see. And so when I go to do a selection, I know what layer I'm on. I'm going to even drop the opacity on that layer. Okay. So I look at my layers palette. I have two different layers. I currently have the square layer, or my template layer. I'm going to go ahead and rename it as template. I have that one active and selected. Now I'm going to go ahead and use Control or Command T for transform to just change the shape of it a little bit, add a little angle to it. When I have that angle and I get the square exactly the way I want it, then I'm going to click on my background layer. That's where the actual image is. Notice that closed my transform tool, but I still have marching ants. With a selection tool, I'm just going to grab lasso. I can right click and choose layer via copy. What that has done, if you look at my layers over here on the right, I now have an individual square layer. I still have my template, which is the white box, and then I have my original background layer. So I'm going to keep repeating that step over and over again. So the first thing is I want to click on my template layer. I want to use Control or Command click to select the marching ants on the white box. I'm going to use Control or Command T to transform, and then I'm going to move it and rotate it. Bring it down just a little bit too. There we go. And then I'm going to click on my background layer, come over to the image, to the marching ants, right click, layer via copy. Repeat. Select the template layer, Control or Command click on the thumbnail, Control or Command T for transform, drag it, rotate it, and then click on the background layer, right click to layer via copy. Repeat. Select the template layer, Control or Command click, Control or Command T to transform, rotate it, move it, choose the background layer, right click, and layer via copy. So I went ahead and created the remaining layers. So I have about 7 layers here of the different cutouts of the dog. I'm going to go ahead and turn off, make invisible the template layer, so I get rid of the shadowing. And now I'm going to go ahead and remove the background layer. And I can see, based on the combination of multiple layers, I have selected the entire dog. So now I can go ahead and add a drop shadow as well as a stroke on each of these little square layers. So I'm going to grab one layer, choose my effects option and stroke. And when this comes up, I can see I'm at a default of 6 pixels. This actually seems to look like it'll work pretty well for this particular image. I do want to make sure the position is inside, because if I choose outside, I'll get rounded edges, and I don't think that looks quite as nice. And center, you can still get slightly rounded, but less rounded. So I prefer using inside. And I'm going to choose white for mine, but you can choose whatever color that you think accents with your image. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on the drop shadow option. And I can go ahead and space out the distance and the size as needed, or the spread. until I get a drop shadow that I'm happy with. When I'm done, I hit OK. So I've applied it to one layer, but I don't want to sit there and make sure I have the same exact settings on all the other individually. So what I can do is on this first layer, I can right click and choose Copy Layer Style. And then I can hold down, click on the next layer and hold down Shift and click on the last layer. That allows me to, that's the Shift click command to select multiple continuous layers. And then I can right click and choose Paste Layer Style. And now I have all the drop shadows and the strokes all together. If I don't like the way certain layers or boxes are layering, I can always change the order of the layers too, just by dragging the layer around in case that works better. And now the last step is I need to go ahead and add some background. So I'm going to add a new blank layer. And I'm going to drag, it's already at the bottom, it's right above my original image. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that with a color. I'm going to grab my paint bucket tool. And first I want to set the color. So if I choose my foreground color, I'm going to go ahead and pull maybe the green from the Frisbee. Use my eyedropper that picked the green. And then with my paint bucket tool and my new layer 8 selected, I can fill in the background with the matching green. Now, if I wanted to change that color, I could certainly do that. So maybe I want to change to something from the background, the tan color, or a little bit more grayish. Click OK, and then I can change with my paint bucket tool that way. Last step, I could add a square that goes around it, a stroke type layer, a key line. I'm gonna add another blank layer. Use my rectangular marquee tool, and looking at my ruler bar up above and to the left, I'm gonna get at the 1/2 inch mark. And then I'm just gonna drag this down to the other corners for the 1/2 inch mark. And then all I have to do is choose Edit, Stroke, and then I can choose a different color for a stroke. I think I'm going to go back to white for this one. And it's a 20 pixel. I think I'm going to make that a bit smaller, choose closer to 10. Again, located on the inside, and hit OK. And then when I use Command or Control T to remove my marching ants, I have a nice little keyline stroke that goes around. It looks like maybe on the right hand side it might be a little tight, so I could always use my transform command to bring that in case I set that up wrong. Okay. And last thing, I can add a drop shadow to this layer as well. So go into Effects, Drop Shadow, just to add a little bit more depth and dimension, and I can see the drop shadow coming around. I think I'm going to go ahead and spread it just a little more. And try that. And I'm done. I've created a photo mosaic, and based on the original one that I showed you with the different photo, I used many smaller squares, and you can see it's the same effect, but I did have as many as, it says 28 layers, but there's a few missing layers in there because I just didn't like the angle I had used, so I reselected those. And so that's how you go about doing it, making a photo mosaic. Hope you enjoy.